Welcome to Talking Live. I'm Dr. Robi Ludwig, and I am thrilled to bring you Jill Chivers. She is from Australia. Jill Chivers is one of the #1 experts in Australia to talk about addictive shopping. I've been a huge fan of hers for years. I get her websites and her newsletters, and now she's out with a new book called Shop Your Wardrobe. That's also the name of her website. Jill, thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Robbie. It's just an honor to be here.
I feel like I'm meeting just the most amazing superstar because I've been following you for years. And the way that I found you was through Dr. April Benson, who
yes.
also is stateside, and she
Yes.
deals with shopping addiction. She
Yes.
recommended your website, and I've been a fan ever since.
Yeah, well, Dr. April literally wrote the book on over shopping, to buy or not to buy, and has been a wonderful champion, colleague, friend. And so that's terrific. It's just amazing how connected we can all be in this crazy global world, isn't it?
I know. Actually, it was my therapist who recommended Dr. April's book to me because shopping addiction really is a challenge. And I was thinking before our interview today, it's Cyber Monday. And I know that you're already into Tuesday because you're ahead of us.
We live in the future here, Robbie.
Yeah. And the internet just bombards us with items that we like, items that we want. Every time we buy something, we're targeted. And I think about how hard that is for people who have difficulty stopping themselves.
That's it. Our shopping follows us around. Even if you like something or put it in your wish or your watch list, you can often be targeted. So this is what's interesting about how the shopping dynamic has changed, where when, we go back into the history of looking at shopping, and it was the shopper who initiated the shopping activity. And now that is almost reversed, where it is the merchant who is initiating contact. And when you are on the receiving end, it's coming into your inbox. It's literally coming at you. You go on social media, you've looked up, scan pans, and all of a sudden you're seeing ads for scan pans.
Yes.
The shopping is following you around. The shopping is the thing that is making all of this contact. And you're right. If you have an issue with over shopping and you are trying to put shopping in its rightful place in your life, this can be extremely challenging.
Yeah. Let's go back to your aha moment. And you talk about this in your book, which is basically your memoir. And when I first picked up your book and started reading it, you describe a work trip that you had where you were shopping in all of these stores. And I swear I felt like you were reading about me. And I got overly excited for a moment. I was like, oh, is what she's doing in a controlled way? I could do that. And then I realized, oh, that's before you helped yourself.
Yeah, that was the before image. Yes, I know, isn't it?
And I think a lot of people can relate to that image, but at one point you had a moment with yourself. Bring us back to that day.
Well, I was shopping with a girlfriend who's not a shopper, and she'd taken me to a destination store in Walnut Creek, just outside of San Francisco, the outer suburbs of San Francisco. And it was a bit of a treat for us. And see, now I know this. Shopping as a treat is a trap for me. And so I'm now aware of that, and I use other things as treats rather than shopping. But at that stage, I wasn't aware of it. So Jen had said, I'll take you to this store. It's fabulous. It's a consignment store, but it's large and it's beautifully curated. And we were wandering around. We were there for quite a long time, long after Jen's endurance for the shopping trip had been exhausted, I might say. Again, awareness very low about these kinds of things. And I had found this leopard print trench coat, and I'd been carrying it around and I'd been oohing and ahhing, and any overshopper knows the justification that you can slip into just without even thinking about it. It's this, it's that, it's my print, it's my size, the rosettes are great, and if this was full price it would be $1 million, and you start rationalizing all this nonsense to yourself. And I put it back, and then I kept going back to it, but I was starting to get confused, and this was really new to me. I had not had a lot of this jumbled confusion, bewilderment before. I'd just really gone straight from I love it to I've got to have it. And then I was looking at this item, and it hit me like a sledgehammer that I had 3 leopard print trench coats at home that were almost identical to this. And that really was the stop in my tracks moment where I just thought, oh, wow, this is bad. My shopping is just really out of control. If I'm thinking of buying a 4th item, and I live in a temperate climate where I don't have use for too many jackets, and I'm thinking of buying a 4th that's almost identical. And it was just this shocking moment, and the wave of emotion that I felt about that. And of course, when we feel things like embarrassment and shame, we try and get away from those emotions as quickly as we can. And I got away from it by just putting it back and leaving the store, but it wouldn't leave me alone. That moment would not leave me alone. It was like it was knocking on the door saying, please pay attention to me. And I'm really glad that I did, but I tell you, it wasn't easy.
You then decided, which I still don't know how you did this, you decided you needed to not shop for clothes and accessories and all the things that you were addicted to buying for 1 full year.
That's right.
That's enormous. That's not like 1 day at a time. That's a huge chunk of time to challenge yourself with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I describe this in the book, and it really was like the idea came to visit me. It barged into my life and refused to go away. And we're all different. And I like to be clear about this. There is no single strategy that will suit everybody perfectly. And you really do need to find your own way. But some of us have the honor of holding the light for others. And sometimes that light points down a road we've been down, and sometimes it illuminates another pathway. So I'm certainly not suggesting this is the pathway for everybody, but I knew that it needed to be extreme. That just saying, I'm going to stop for a week, or I'm just going to become more conscious, or any of those kinds of things, it was going to be far too easy to let myself off the hook. I really needed something, that the size of the problem needed to have a solution or a solution pathway that matched the size of the problem. And that's where that year came from.
What did you discover during that year about yourself, why you shopped, what you were trying, what feelings you were trying to get rid of or have?
Yeah, well, there were many things that I discovered covering the entire spectrum. And this is important too, because, you can either spend too long in the deep, dark place, which of course is where a lot of excavation needs to occur, but that can just seem like it's too much of a hard slog all of the time, and you need some relief from that. But if then you're not excavating at that level, you're really just staying at the surface, and you're just playing around with the ideas. And so I discovered, on the emotional scale, I discovered nice things like I'm actually a lot more creative than what I gave myself credit. I now think of myself as a creative person, and I was really struggling with that idea that I might be creative. So that was some of the things on the nicer scale of things. On the less nice side of things, I discovered how much shopping was the boss of me, that I really didn't have control over it. I fronted up to some fairly awful feelings about vanity and how vain I was, and no doubt still am. And that's really hard. Oh goodness, there's a lot of tears that are associated with something like that. I also recognized the power of messages received when you're young and you don't have that same filtering mechanism. As an adult, you can look back and try and place childhood activities into a sense-making framework, but sometimes the emotional impact of that is just so much harder to deal with. And I had a lot of feelings about being fat and ugly, which probably is married to the vanity thing as an adult. And, you know, feeling that you're fat and ugly for most of your life, you know, that's also, that's really painful to recognize that that's when you look in the mirror, that's what you see.
I really do believe in, and I struggle with this as well, because shopping is fun. It can be creative.
Sure.
It's, you know, and people tend to buy the same things, right? Variants of the same thing. We're drawn to the same thing. We like the same thing. But I do believe it's connected to a trauma. And I know this as a therapist, that insight is not always the key to changing the behavior. And you talk about this on your website and in your book, that willpower is not enough to change this behavior, and that you really need to structure your life in a certain way in order to achieve a reduction in spending.
Absolutely. And if you are relying on willpower and you are in the grip of an over something or an addictive behavior, your willpower will run out long before the grip of whatever it is that has a hold on you. And so that is a pathway to failure. And this is also why people who try don't succeed, is because they don't have enough of those structural elements in place. And it's those structural things. It's like scaffolding it will save you from falling off. And it might not always save you, because sometimes if this behavior really has a hold on you, then it's just not going to go away because you recognize it or because you want it to. And so those structural things are really important. Make shopping difficult. That's it in a nutshell. Make it as hard as possible for shopping to be a part of your everyday, every week life. There are many ways that you can do that. Online, just unsubscribe to everything. Start filling your inbox with other things. You can't just create a vacuum. You take shopping out and you don't put something else in, then that also is not going to work. You have to put other things in.
Yeah. What kinds of other things do you recommend people do? Because I do think that boredom can also be a trigger for people for any kind of addictive behavior. And I do think we are designed to be addicted to something, right? Because there's intensity of emotion that we don't want to face. And so what do? We take an action that helps us relieve that feeling. So what do you recommend we replace with shopping?
Well, there's two parts to that answer. One is about action and the other is about attitude, and they are both important. And they are also both processes. They're not one tick and flick, you're done kind of thing. I'm still working on my shopping problem. To this day, I live with it. I don't feel it's gone. I feel like I live with it with some grace and dignity, but so it is a process, and that's really important to recognize. The attitude part is about recognizing that shopping has had this place in your life and you want it to have a different place, and to start thinking laterally or creatively or out of the box, and just recognizing that. The action part can come in many forms, and one of the things I suggest that women do, this applies to men as well, but my audience is primarily women, is create an I love to do apart from shopping list. And that list, every list will be different. So I include one of these in the book, which is where I started from. And just start with manageable things that you enjoy doing or you quite like. And it might be something really simple and straightforward. I'm going to make a meal from scratch. I am, going to, instead of going shopping on Saturday, I'm going to find a documentary series and watch it all the way through. Instead of meeting a girlfriend at a shopping district, I'm going to meet her where we can go for a walk. You just start with small things. Do not expect them to be as enjoyable, as fun, give you that high buy as shopping, because when you start out, that's just an impossible ask. But you start and you grow your list with more and more things. And then eventually you find that instead of defaulting, okay, I've got a spare hour, I am going to online browse for whatever it is, purple jackets, suede shoes. I now have a subscription to whatever it is that is really engaging my brain and making me think of different things. And there are videos or articles, whatever it is, that really stimulate my thinking. I'm going to go there instead of doing my favorite online trawling, because the more you do that, the more the shopping will follow you around.
You talk about conscious shopping for the people that follow you. What is that exactly, and how can that help with somebody who has a shopping problem?
Well, that's a great question. I have a definition that works for me, and I encourage people to find their own. But here's the definition that I work with, and that conscious shopping is about the 3 stages of shopping. That in itself can be life-changing, recognizing that shopping is not just the event of looking and purchasing. There is a before aspect and an after aspect, and recognizing these 3 elements, and they all feed into the experience and the feeling of shopping. And this alone can be very helpful. Something precedes your shopping. There is something going on that got you there. And when you start tuning into that before piece, it can change the during part quite dramatically. And then the after part is recognizing that you need to do a little debrief. How did I go? How do I feel about the shopping that I've done on a practical level? Do I still like everything that I purchased? Do I still want to keep it? Does it have a place in my life, a place in my style? Have I returned it all? You know, that's the equivalent of a bulimic, someone who purchases and purchases and then sends it all back. You're just throwing it back up. So recognizing that there's these 3 elements, and that your awareness is very high about what took you to shopping, what the shopping experience was like during, and then how you felt after. And I talk about being happy long after the ink has dried on the receipt. That is a really big one for a lot of over shoppers. It certainly was for me. These emotions that wash back at you. I like to think of it as almost like detritus washing back on a beach. This embarrassment, this shame, you feel greedy, you feel stupid, all of this stuff. And of course, we try and get away from that feeling as quickly as possible. And sometimes it sends us straight back into shopping.
It's so true. It's like what you resist persists. And I do think a lot of people shop in order to get away from the shame, and it just never works that way. What do you think is healthy shopping? How would you define that for somebody who has addictive tendencies?
Healthy shopping to me is when each of those 3 phases has that level of awareness, and you feel comfortable talking about your shopping. There's a statistic, to me, I think it's low. 41% of women hide purchases from their partners. I personally think that's quite a low statistic.
I do too.
Yeah. I mean, we've all done that. You know, most women have done it to some, but over shoppers, you know, things like they hide it in the grocery bags, or they leave it in the back of the car, and then they tuck it in and they bring it up in installments. Hey, is that something new? Oh, this old thing. And you become a great dissembler, you know, in that regard. So, which is obviously not good for your own self-esteem and sense of self-worth, let alone for your relationship if you're, you know, basically not telling the truth about
the
things.
other thing that I've found is that usually more is less in some way, because if you're over shopping and you're getting multiple, you probably can't find half of what you have when you need it. And that contributes to shopping for something. It's like a well kind of presented closet when you can't have your own closet in that way.
Oh, that is so true. And it's one of the reasons why I emphasize organizing your wardrobe so that you can see everything. You know, we profiled an overshopper who bought an identical black shirt from the same store. And I'm not talking a similar black shirt, but the same black shirt from the same store, because her wardrobe was so disorganized, she couldn't see it. And, you know, when your wardrobe, your physical space, the container into which all of this is going is a disheveled mess, it's really hard to see what you've got. And, you know, you're literally like the overeater who's not checking in to say, am I hungry? What is my body craving? What do I really need? What's going to nourish me? You just keep shoving more in.
You have different coursework that you provide. It's on your website, and we're going to have a link up to your website, where you have a year course, a 6-week course, and then there's a new monthly course.
Yeah, a 28-day Wear Your Wardrobe workshop, which
I'm signing up for that one, unless you think I can sign up for the 6-week one.
Well, look, they're different to one another. So the 6-week course is really about how do I slow down my shopping and just shine the gentle light of awareness on what I'm doing. And one of the things that I think differentiates my programs from other excellent courseware that is out there is it has a focus on women who love style. My goal was never to become a minimalist where I got rid of the majority of my clothing and I was left with a pair of jeans and a sarong. That was never what I wanted to do. I wanted to wear more of what I had and enjoy enjoy it, and I wanted to stop the stranglehold that shopping had on my emotional and my creative life. And so I still have a large wardrobe. And so this is one of the things that is threaded through all of my courseware, is it is designed for women who enjoy style, because I think there's a lot of wonderful advice out there, but it's often either overtly stating or there's an undercurrent of you need to get rid of everything. And I can see where this has come from, because a lot of other work that is about reducing the hold of an addictive behavior is about removing alcohol from your life, removing drugs from your life, taking all of this out. And I appreciate that. But if you love style, and getting dressed is a nice part of your day, then just taking it out and reducing that to some arbitrary small number can feel like punishment. And of course, that is not sustainable.
Yeah. It's like starving yourself during a diet.
That's it.
We talked about, before we started this interview, and you mentioned it a lot in your book, your love of Leopard. That's your signature style. And you had some new insights recently about what Leopard means to you.
Well, I did. I turned 50 this year, and I'm loving being
I'm going
in
to
my
gift
50s.
you my book. I'm going to gift you my book, Your Best Ages Now. I'm going to send it via Kindle. Can I do that?
Oh, please do. I would love that. That would be fantastic. And I started wearing Leopard in my 30s, but really committed to it, in my 40s. And one of the things I noticed being 50 is that I have become friendlier with my skin, and this is related to my Leopard print wearing, because I was a very freckly child. And I remember a style advisor early in my life saying, Leopard would be good on you because you have spots. And so I had connected those two things, but I'd never returned to it because I have freckles. And I'd always hated my freckles, and I can't say now I madly love them, but I am on friendlier terms with my freckles. And in a way, wearing Leopard is a way of honoring something I can never get away from, which is my skin. And, turning 50, I've wanted to show my skin a little bit more. So I've gone from a makeup that covers it all up to now wearing BB cream, where you can actually see you can't see it so much on this screen, but you can see my freckles, like they're visible. And so that's been an interesting thing for me. And I felt it's been some kind of honoring and returning to some kind of self-care, when you have spent big portions of your life not emotionally caring for yourself. Any act of self-care can be significant.
And I think the wonderful psychological truth about turning 50 and beyond is that you really grow into yourself, and there is an appreciation of self and a greater self-esteem that did not exist previously. And it's a shame that, at least in American culture, we don't recognize that as enough. And hopefully we will moving into the future. Maybe Australia is different, but I can tell you that 50 and beyond, it's a great place to be.
Oh, yeah. Well, there are so many wonderful women who are holding the light for those of us coming behind, showing us how fabulous those later years, just how productive and creative we can be. That sense of being so much more comfortable with yourself. For me, the opinions of other people have always weighed far too heavily on me, and setting some of that burden down.
I love your book. It's called Shop Your Wardrobe. You also offer courses, and you offer a website, and you offer free articles to read that people can familiarize themselves with. It's just a lot of great information. You also are very generous about recommending other people's books and ideas, which I greatly appreciate and I have enjoyed. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to share all the information. Where can people find you?
Shopyourwardrobe.com has all the information and links, so you can link from there over to Amazon. Click on free stuff. That's often a great place to start. I have 5 free resources on my website of varying kinds, and I really do encourage people to make financial decisions that are good for them, including e-courses. So have a look there, have a read of some of the free things, download some of the free resources, and see where you want to go from there, and really recognize that your journey will be unique, individual, personal, and meaningful to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to my audience for joining us this week. And we'll see you next week on Talking Live.